All right, welcome to the Radon Information Session for the 100 Test Kit Challenge in Blackfalds. My name is Pam Workington, and I am the project manager of Take Action on Radon and executive director of CARST and CNRPP, which is our National Radon Association and Certification Program. And joining me tonight is Dr. Anne-Marie Nicol from the BC CDC. She is our epidemiologist expert, and she is going to start us off with talking about the health impact of radon.
Thank you, Pam. As Pam said, yes, I am calling in from the west coast of British Columbia. And I know where Blackfalds is. I used to live in Fort Saskatchewan myself in Alberta. So I think you're just outside of Red Deer, if I recall. I am going to talk a bit about the impact that radon has on health, and then I'm going to hand it back to Pam, who will explain how the exposures can be reduced, and then the 100 Test Kit Challenge. And again, just this is a national program, and we unite members across Canada and encompass the traditional territories of many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples whose ancestral footsteps and rights extend beyond the colonial boundaries we understand today. So we respectfully honor people's rights and history and their relationship to this land. And this evening, I am calling in from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people here in East Vancouver. So if you've never heard of radon gas, or you've only just heard the word and you didn't know what it was, you're not alone. So Statistics Canada, when they do the census, sometimes you have to fill in those extra questions. You've been selected for the extra questions section. If you have done that recently, you may have been asked some questions about radon. And what they've learned in the last 10 years of giving this survey is that less than 50% of Canadians know what radon is and can accurately answer questions about it. So if you came here not knowing a lot, you are definitely not alone. But I can guarantee you that by the end of this presentation, you will know more about radon than most people. And I really encourage you to tell other people what you've learned tonight, because one of the biggest problems we have in lung cancer reduction is that we're not talking enough about radon gas. And radon gas is actually the leading cause of lung cancer in people who don't smoke, and the second leading cause of lung cancer in people who do smoke. And in BC, so I can't speak specifically to Alberta, but I suspect it's very similar. In BC, what we now know is that about 32% of our newly diagnosed cancer patients with lung cancer have never smoked. And so there's a real pressing need to understand what it is that these people are exposed to and reduce that. And radon gas is the most likely candidate. We have a large part of British Columbia where the radon levels are some of the highest in the country. So it is, yeah, again, in Alberta is not that much different. So there's parts of BC that are high and parts that are not. But we are seeing this really dramatic increase in non-smoking cancers and those happen in women and younger people. So that's why we're here talking to you tonight, because radon gas exposure is likely one of the leading causes of this type of cancer. Next, please. So you might ask yourself, well, how do we know that radon gas causes cancer? And it is an odorless, colorless, invisible gas. It's designated as a known human carcinogen, so that's like the highest level of evidence that we know clearly that something causes something else. And the reason that we know this is because people who were miners, men who worked in mines across North America and Europe, they were exposed to radon gas in underground mines. And it was very clear that as that exposure went up, the likelihood of them developing lung cancer went up. And so that's why we clearly know that radon gas in humans who breathe it in over time can develop lung cancer. And Health Canada has done some statistics, and they estimated about 3,200 people die each year in Canada alone from radon-related lung cancer. So that's actually quite high, much higher than many of the other things that we have campaigns about, like carbon monoxide, for example, a similar kind of gas. Next, please. So as I noted, that radon is the leading cause of lung cancer in people who don't smoke. But if you do smoke, the 1-2 punch of the PM 2.5 and the combustion products plus the radiation actually leads to a significantly higher risk of developing lung cancer. So if you are a smoker or you live with a smoker, testing for radon and reducing levels is a really good way to help protect yourself from developing lung cancer. And this is a Health Canada publication that is publicly available. Here in BC, our environmental health physician really likes to talk about both the distinction between exposure to people who are smokers versus non-smokers and how that increases with increasing levels. So I'm going to walk you through this table. Your lifetime risk of developing lung cancer, just background risk, if at certain radon levels, is relatively low. It goes from 1%, but up to 4%. So you can see that that risk really does increase. If you smoke, though, you're already starting at a lower probability. And as the radon level goes up, the risk becomes considerable. At the bottom of this table, the numbers are in red, and that's because 200 becquerels per meters cubed, that's how we measure radon in Canada. That is the guideline at which the federal government suggests that people remediate their homes or reduce the levels of radon so that they're under 200. This is a linear dose response relationship, though. So, again, the higher the radon level, the greater the risk. And unfortunately, that also means that 199 is not that much less than 200. So it's not a magic number that suddenly means your house is safe. And the reason that we've differentiated 100 between 100 and 200 is because other countries in the world use lower regulatory guidelines. So in Europe, they recommend 100 becquerels, and in the United States, they use a different metric, of course, but it translates to about 150 becquerels. So they are more health protective in other parts of the world and recommend people fix their houses at a different rate that is lower than ours. Next, please. So how do you get exposed to this gas? I'm sure none of you work in underground mines at this point in time. There's not a lot of uranium or hard rock mining going on. So you are actually exposed to the gas in your home. So radon gas is a natural part of the decay of uranium, which is atomically unstable and gives off radiation over time. And mostly that's into other kinds of rocks. But radon is this one opportunity in that decay cycle in which it forms a gas. And gases like to move from cold, cramped places into open, warm places. And that includes going from the ground and into homes. So the gas will seep through cracks in the floors or sidewalls or sumps or areas around drains, cracks in foundations up into the house. And then those levels can accumulate over time. And that's partly why we see that levels are generally highest in the basement and ground contact rooms, because again, it's a soil gas moving from a cold, cramped place to the warmer, more open space inside a home. And where can radon be a concern? Like we just talked about homes and mines, but it's also can build up in any structure that has walls, doors and windows and a roof. So if you have that can be closed, schools, workplaces, really any building that has contact with the ground has the potential to have radon accumulate over time. And as a result, the federal government recommends that all buildings be tested for radon. And in some parts of Alberta, I know schools have been tested. There was a move to test childcare facilities at one point, just around when the pandemic came along. But it is all the federal government buildings have been tested in Alberta as well. So how do you test for radon? One of the problems with it is it's an odorless, colorless, tasteless radioactive gas. So you can't tell without some form of testing how what the levels are in your home. And you also can't really guess. So if your neighbor has high levels or low levels, that doesn't necessarily predict what your house is. Because we've really learned over time that houses side by side can have very different levels of radon, even if there's a fair bit of uranium in the soil underneath a home. This is driven by the size of the home, how it's settled over time, how the house was constructed, and how people use their homes. Some people leave doors and windows open all year round, other people close their houses up. And we know that things like energy efficiency initiatives, which tighten up building envelopes, can also lead to trapping gases inside if they're not balanced. So the only way that you're going to know if there's radon in your home is to test. And there's a couple of different ways of doing that. In this program, we're providing with what's known as an alpha track test, but some of you might be familiar with other kinds of tests, which are digital monitors or continuous monitors as well. One of the things about the testing that you'll be doing in this program is we're giving you a free test that we want you to keep in your home for at least 91 days. And you might think, wow, that's a long time. Why do I have to do it for that long? And that's because, again, radon is a gas and its concentration can change over time depending on what's going on in your house and literally actually depending on the weather. So sometimes when there's a low pressure system, it can push gases, soil gases down. High pressure system or a ridge can pull gases up. So the radon levels vary over time. Even here in East Vancouver, where I don't have a lot of radon generally in my house, my monitor goes up and down. So we don't want to know what the worst level is in your house, and we don't want to know what the best day is with the least amount of radon. So we leave this little device, which you'll see a picture of in a moment, that sits in your house and it basically breathes the same air that you breathe. And over time, the damage from the radiation accumulates inside that little device. It's sent off to a lab, it's analyzed, and then we get a sense of what your average concentration actually is within that window. And this also, when you're testing, you don't want to put your test kit in the worst place that you think it'll be the worst radon, like a crawl space where nobody actually breathes. Again, you want it to breathe the same air that you would breathe most often. And the devices that we use for this program are called Alpha Tracks. Some people call them Alpha Trackers. They're just a small plastic device. They are mostly unbreakable. Sometimes they've been used as hockey pucks, like for by kids. But if that happens, you just pick them up and put them back where they are. They don't require a battery. They're not plug-inable. There, no display shows up on them. They just sit there. They're plastic, and then they're mailed away, and they're a one-time use. There's other kinds of monitors that, like the digital monitors that are available in the library. Those are can be used by many different people, but this is just for you, and it is a one-time use. And it's actually one of the most accurate types of radon testing devices. And we actually follow quite a rigorous quality assurance protocol in this program to make sure that the tests are working properly. And Pam will talk to you about that in a minute. So you send the device off to a lab, and then you will get an email back saying what your radon reading is for your house. And that number is just for you. So what to do? If it is below 200, that means it's within the Canadian guideline. It might not be within the American or the European guideline, but it's within the Canadian guideline. One of the things you might want to consider is retesting, especially if you're going to, for example, finish your basement or replace your windows with double glazed or triple glazed windows. If you're going to do any kind of energy retrofit, you might want to consider retesting. And they do suggest that people tend to test every 5 years. But Pam and I are still, we're working on getting everybody to test at least once. But if you do get your reading back and it's, in the hundreds, you might want to think about testing again because Pam has a story about her own house that levels can change. Oh, sorry, go back, Pam. Yep. If your level is above 200, that's where you're going to want to take action to reduce the radon levels. And they do recommend that you do that within a year. It doesn't mean you need to evacuate your house right away if the level is high, but it is something that you want to, consider fixing as soon as you possibly can, but it's not an emergency. Okay, Pam, I think it's your turn next.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks so much, Anne-Marie. Yeah, so and as Anne-Marie said, if your levels are above the guidance of 200, you can take action to reduce it. And we do have a national certification program that you can find a professional to help you. So CNRPP is Canada's national certification program. If you go to cnrpp.ca and click on the Find a Professional box, you can search by postal code or province and find a professional in your area to help. And that mitigation system typically looks like this. So we call it a radon mitigation system, and it includes a pipe which goes down through the concrete slab of your home and provides a pathway for the gas to go up and out. And when it gets discharged, it goes into the outside air and it gets down to really low levels. And so it's a really simple concept, but it does need to be installed properly. So the pipe is going to go down through the concrete floor, and it's important for this concrete slab to be well sealed. That way it's going to draw air from the full footprint of the home from one point off on the side of your house. And then the other thing that's important is that the fan is properly sized. So we don't want this to suck the air out. We just want it to move the air up and out. And so that's fan needs to be properly sized for your home so that it creates that right amount of pressure to move the air through the system and out of the house. And then the other thing is it needs to be in the proper location so that the discharge is in the right location. We don't want this air re-entraining into your home or drawn back in. And so there are some clearances that need to be met in order for that as well. So a really simple concept, but it does need to be installed properly. And when it is, it reduces levels to really low levels. And so here's a couple examples of what it might look like. In addition to the pipe and the fan, your pipe will also have a little monitor on it called a U-tube manometer. And this will measure if the fact that the fan is still working. So when the air is moving through the system, it will just kind of create the U-tube manometer, the U of the liquid in the U-tube will just be slightly off center, showing that there is some air movement in that fan. If it flattens out, then it's just an indicator that you might want to just have the fan checked. On this system, there's a digital one, or electronic one, so it just sounds an alarm so that you don't have to keep watch on that little manometer. Now, I talked about a concrete floor, but if you have a dirt floor crawl space, you can have this as well. And instead of concrete, we would just create the foundation with a membrane. So again, we need a well-sealed membrane. So it would seal across some pits or any openings. It would seal around the perimeter, both mechanical and an airtight seal, and then around the pipe that's coming in. So really important for it to be well-sealed throughout the full footprint of the home. All right, and then so that's really a system that gets installed in existing homes, but there is also measures in our National Building Code for radon, and so they really are meant to help with controlling it somewhat, but preparing the home so that it can be effectively mitigation system can be effectively installed and work really well. And those measures include a layer of clear gravel under the slab of the home or the building, so 4 inches of gravel. And then on top of the gravel is a poly liner, and so that goes across the footprint of the home. And again, that helps with that well-sealed foundation. So the poly liner would be sealed around all openings and help to support either if you do have concrete. And then there's also a requirement for this rough-in pipe. So if your home in Alberta, the building code came in about 2014. So if your home was built in 2014 or more recent, then you should have some type of rough-in. And so typically the rough-in was just this capped pipe about 12 inches up off the floor. So it should be fully capped and sealed. And so it doesn't remove the radon, but it does provide some measures so that when you test, and if you do need to reduce your levels, now you can cut off the cap and then install an extension to that pipe and vent it outside, like in the photos that I showed before. There are some homes, so I'm familiar with the Blackfalds area, and I do know there's actually some full passive systems in the area. So some of you may have a pipe that goes up and extends completely out of the house right at the point of construction. So I know I've talked with a couple people that have this. I don't know if it's a builder in particular that's doing it or how many homes have it, but you may also have that. So the pipe would go from down below the space up and discharge out. So up through the roof. And so this may, if it goes straight up, it may actually have some level of passive movement of the air, but it's still important to test because if the levels are high, then you still need to add the fan in order to increase that draw of air and make sure that there's even less radon coming in. So that's measures in the building code or possibly new construction measures. The building code will be changing so that passive pipe will actually soon be required in the next couple of years across the country. Okay, so then if you do have high levels and you do need to install a radon mitigation system, the Canadian Lung Association has a national radon mitigation grant. And so you can apply to this to the Canadian Lung Association, just search on Lungs Matter grant. You do need to qualify. So there's two ways to qualify. Either you are under the median income for the area, or there's somebody in the home that has been diagnosed with lung cancer. So those are two ways to qualify for the grant, and you can go on the Canadian Lung Association website and they show what the income levels are by province for that median income. So if you meet the criteria, then you can apply. And in order to apply, you need a long-term radon test report. So that's what you'll get as participating in this program. And then you also need a quote from a CNRPP professional, and you need to apply before you get the work done. So that's an important thing to note, that the application needs to go in first before any of the work is started. Okay, so that covers kind of the basics of radon to give you a little bit of a background on what radon is, how to measure and fix it. And now I'm going to go into the components of the program, including, what to do with the test once you pick it up, and next steps. All right, so for those of you in person at the library tonight, you will pick up your package, and the package is a brown envelope, a half-page size or 5x7 size brown envelope. Inside, there's an instruction sheet and the radon test. And so you can take that home and then set it up. And then there is information as well to go. We need your start date and your contact information connected to your serial number. So we will get you to record that information online. And then that's it. Put it in place and leave it for 100 days. And then you're going to return it back to this Blackfalds library during the collection week. And then we're going to make sure that they get shipped back to the lab, and then you'll get your report. Okay, so I'm going to go through that all step by step. So you pick up your envelope, your package with your radon detector. You take it home. You open up the package and take out the little package that has the detector in it. And then find a location in your home where you spend 4 hours a day or more. So think first about your basement. And if you have a room in your basement, a bedroom, a home office, or a family room where somebody in your home spends 4 hours a day there during the week, then that's a great room to set up the detector. If your basement is only used for laundry or, storing things, then think about your main floor. And so again, a room where you spend 4 hours a day or more, such as a bedroom, a home office, or a playroom. And then once you've picked your room, then think about a location within that room where the test can sit and stay for 3 months. So a good location is a table or a shelf. It's going to be there for 3 months. So think about a location where it can stick around. And so if you've got kids or pets or just move things around your space, then you can also hang it. So you can hang it on from an inside wall or hang it from the ceiling. And so it comes in a clear plastic package. And so you just open up that clear plastic package, and then that's it. It's turned on. So you just set it in place and leave it for the 3 months. But then we do need some information for you in order to get your report. So we're going to get you to go and log into the START survey. And so that will, you can find that website on the instructions, or there's a link on the envelope, or I'm emailing you a link so you can click on that, or you can scan a QR code and it'll take you to the START survey as well. And the reason we need you to do this is because the detector is not electronic, so it doesn't transmit any information to us. It's just a little plastic package detector. So you need to record the serial number on it with your contact information so we can connect your serial number with you. And then we also need your address and the start date so that we can have that information for the report. And so if you go online and complete the START survey, then it will ask you these required questions. So that's information we need for the report. And then it will ask you some optional questions. And so we are doing research on it. And so if you want to continue the optional questions, you can just say yes. There's sort of a question, do you want to keep going? And so you can say yes. If you've answered enough and you're ready just to say no, then you can hit no and just hit submit. And that will cover all the required information we need. And then that's it for the 3 months. On the envelope, we recommend that you keep that envelope because on it is the serial number of the detector, and then there's a location for you to handwrite the start date and the end date. And so this is information for you. So if you don't get the report for whatever reason by email at the end of all the program, this is kind of your backup information so that you will remember you did this program and you want to get that report. And it's got our contact information so you can contact us. But the start and the end date and the serial number, those are the three pieces of information that you will not remember after you've dropped off the detector. And so it has that information for you to keep because if something fails with the online information that you've given us, that is your backup copy. So keep that envelope on your fridge or wherever you're going to remember it, and that will remind you that, hey, I need to get a report. And then once you've got the report from us, then you can toss it out. Okay, so you've set the detector up, you've completed the start survey, and then you enjoy the holidays. And in 3 months, then you'll see the date on the envelope, and then you will drop that detector back to the Blackfalds Library. Now, 10% of you will receive two detectors. And so about 10 of you will receive an envelope that has two detectors in it. And so these detectors are called our quality control packages, and they help us measure the precision of the detectors. So as Anne-Marie said, the ones that we're using are quite accurate, and we know that because we test them. And so we have accuracy tests that we send to the lab and expose them to a known level. But then we also do these duplicates to make sure that they're measuring precise or consistently. And so if you get two detectors, then we'd ask that you complete that survey with both serial numbers and set them up together. So open the packages at the same time, put them side by side on the same shelf and leave them and then drop them off together. So it's not a bonus detector. Please don't give it to a friend or use it in different layers of your house. Please set them up side by side. Okay, and then as I mentioned, at the end of the 3 months, you'll drop it off at the detector, and there is an end survey as well because we need that end date and some information from you as well. Okay, and then after we ship the detectors to the lab will analyze the detectors and then we'll email you a report. And so this is about what the report will look like. And on it will be the radon level. And so Anne-Marie said, if it's above 200, then you will fix. And so you'll also get like a one-page information sheet from us to remind you of all the information that we've sort of given you about the background information of radon and mitigation and that sort of thing. So we'll give you a bit of an instruction sheet, but the radon report is really important. And so you can have that for your records. And then that individual radon report is confidential to you, but what we do is we summarize the data and roll it up to a community report. And then we publish the community reports so that we can see what the radon levels are across the country and we can share that data with your municipal leaders. And we are seeing that, there's high levels all across the country. So it's helpful to have these community reports to be able to have conversations about the radon levels across the country. And so in the report, we summarize the data and review how many reports or how many homes were tested as part of the program, and then how many of those were above 100, between 1 and 200, or above the 200 level. And then it also has some general information about radon so that, just generally if somebody picks it up, they understand what it's all about. Okay, so that is all about how to start your test. So from starting tomorrow, or for those of you that are in the library tonight, you can pick up your detector since you're there already. And you can but if you are listening to this online, you can go in starting tomorrow, November 18th until November 28th to pick up kits. And so we have less than half of the detectors are pre-registered for, so there are still detectors left. So feel free to tell your neighbors and your friends, and let's get all of those 100 stacked up. And so the rest will be on a first come, first serve basis. So if you have registered, please make sure that you go in and pick up your kit, but then tell a friend and they can come in and pick up a kit as well. And so Kelly, they'll come and pick up the kit. And so I'll get you to just check in with us and see if there is any extra instructions maybe that they have when they pop into the library.
Yeah, and we do have at least two questions as well if we still have time for that.
Perfect. Yeah, we got lots of time. We'll move into questions in a second.
Perfect.
So yeah, when people pop into the library, they just come up to the circulation desk and they'll find the kits.
Yep, we will be able to get you guys matched with your kits once you come to the front desk.
Perfect. Good. All right. And then the collection week is February 23rd to 27th. So the same thing, you go into the Service Credit Union Library and pick and drop off the kit at the end of that. All right. And just before we get to questions, I'll just make a couple announcements. So at Take Action on Radon, our goal is to raise awareness on radon. And so we thought we'd put a fun contest together to see if you can get you to help us with raising awareness as well. And so if you go to november.ca, so that's KNOWVEMBR.ca, we're kind of playing on the word November. And if you have learned about radon tonight, and we ask that you would share something with your community, your friends, your family, and then take a picture that represents that, and then submit it online. And you can enter the contest, and there's some great prizes. We've got weekly draws for $50 gift cards for Canadian Tire or Mark's Work Warehouse. And then we also have grand prizes, Fitbit, paddleboard, KitchenAid, and some more gift cards. So check out that contest. And then also there is a radon game. So we've been talking tonight about testing in homes, but you should also be testing in other buildings. And so you can go play the game and find out some great facts about radon around your community, have fun and learn a little bit. And then it's a bonus way to enter the contest as well. So check that game out. All right. And we are really thankful for Kelly. So Kelly, thanks for helping us connect with your community and helping us with launching tonight and handing out the detectors and communicating. So we provide the program for free, but it really does take a team locally to help support it. So thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, and thank you guys for coming again tonight.
Yeah.
Are we about ready for questions, I take it?
Yeah, we sure are. So we have a few online. So maybe I'll start with a couple and then you can get yours organized in person, Kelly.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Perfect. Okay, so we've got a question. We're not concerned with radon flare-ups, just averages. So is there any health concerns with the flare-up? So this would be the idea that the radon levels can change and they might go up high and then they might go down low and that sort of thing. So Anne-Marie, do you want to just answer, is there a concern about the high peaks, or why is it that we're focused on the average?
Yeah, the reason that we're focused on the average is because the risk assessments so how we understand exposure is over the long term. And so people often ask, well, how long do you have to be exposed to elevated radon before your risk of cancer becomes cognizant or realized? And that's between 5 to 15 years of elevated radon levels. So the reason why we don't tend to respond to spikes is because the levels actually can change quite a bit through even, like I said, things like the weather. What you would be worried about though is if your device, if you have a digital device, so these exist in your library. Some people probably have these at home even. They're a digital or continuous radon monitor. If the level goes up and stays up, then that likely means that something has changed, either in your house or underground. And we know that things like earthquakes or drilling can actually cause changes underground that would cause a spike and then that would stay. So if the level ramps up suddenly and then remains high, that's a different kettle of fish. That would mean suddenly that your exposure is that much higher and you would want to make a change faster. But the spikes themselves, again, they can be caused by a thunderstorm or a very windy day or a very dry summer. I don't know, Pam, do you want to speak to your
Yeah.
experience with that? Yeah.
Yeah, so my house, I'm on the prairies, so just down in Winnipeg. And when I first moved into my house about 13 years ago, I tested and the levels were below the 200 level. But we had a drought on the prairies, so we had a couple wet years, and then one spring where we'd had a really dry, not a lot of snow through the winter. I saw my levels actually going up, which is sort of contrary to what we normally think. And so, not just me, but I do get phone calls from people across the country. So I noticed that I was getting a lot of calls from other people in the prairie region, especially Saskatchewan, where they also were experiencing a drought. So, things like that can change the fissures of the ground. And so the radon can come up more easily through the cracks and such in the foundations. We also have noticed that when it rains, when the rain comes down, the levels will go up in the short term. So often the rain will sort of prevent the gas from coming up in the air around us, but sort of there's no water sort of barrier under your house. So often the first couple days of rain, it may spike your radon levels. And then as the water saturates the ground, the levels may start to settle down and that water may be more of a barrier. So things like that can change the radon level, so it can go up and down. And so, as Anne Marie said, it's a chronic exposure. So we're focused on the long-term exposure. And then also, we do recommend that you might want to test again in 5 years because levels can change.
And
Yeah.
I did some research a few years back in BC, in the northeastern part of BC, and we found that radon levels did change as a result, in some cases, of hydraulic fracturing. So drilling and deep well injections that had been drilled afterwards. Then this is also seen in Pennsylvania, where there's a lot of hydraulic fracturing as well.
Yeah. So things can change. So we
Things can
do
change.
recommend that you test, and this is prevention. So, testing every so many years will help you with just monitoring your exposure levels, so that that you can prevent that.
Pam,
And
there's a question here for you. How much does it cost for someone to come in and then install the radon reduction equipment and process?
yeah, so at Take Action on Radon, we did a little bit of research from 2019 to 2022, and saw that the average radon level was just under $3,000. So radon levels have gone, or prices have gone up a little bit since then. So we usually say about $3,000 on average. Now, this can change just depending on the complexity of the home. So if you've got a large footprint, or maybe a crawl space, or more complicated, design of the house or whatever, it can impact the price. But on average, about $3,000. So, less than a heating system or less than replacing your windows. Yeah, good question. All right. And we've got some in person. So Kelly, are you ready with your in-person questions?
I think we are. I think we are. Okay, so our first one is, I have a dirt basement in an old home. Is this an extra concern?
So it possibly. So a dirt basement may provide pathways for that gas to come in because it is open to the soil. But if it's an old house and it's leaky, the air may be coming in and it might be going out, or there might be fresh air. So yeah, I mean that is a good question. We did do some research. Well, and even with this program, we've been doing research to try and see if there's features of a home that we can predict the radon levels. And really, what the research is showing us is that any home can have high levels. So there may be things like a crawl space that, is more likely, but, you don't know unless you test. So we certainly have had homes like that that have tested low as well.
There's an online question that follows that up, I think, Pam, which is
Yeah, that's true.
wood basements. I'm not sure what a wood, maybe they mean wood lined or wood finished
A
basement.
wood subfloor, yeah. So typically a wood subfloor would have a crawl space underneath with a poly liner. And so if you do have a wood subfloor, typically there should be a poly liner covering the crawl space underneath the wood floor. If it's well installed, it's possible that it's a good barrier for the radon. But if not, if it's, got rips and tears in it, then it could be letting the radon in. So yeah, so test. And then the good news is that if you can go down under your wood floor into the crawl space, you can either replace the poly liner or fix it up, and that may help with controlling the radon.
Okay, I think that's it
Yeah.
for questions
Oh,
online right
but
now.
Kelly, I think, has a couple more in
Yeah.
person.
Yeah, it looks like we have three more.
Okay.
Other than cancer, will radon exposure have a negative effect on existing long-term conditions? Example, COPD, autoimmune disease, etc.
Yeah, good question.
That is a good question. So we have to go back. So the answer is we don't know. And the reason why we don't know is because when we think about how they understood that exposure caused cancer, it's because they were working with healthy middle-aged men who are working, or young to middle-aged men working in mines. So we don't actually know uh, the relationship between radon exposure and other conditions, in part because we can't purposely expose people to radon and then see what happens later on. Right now, there in BC, we're trying to create enough, and I know in Alberta too, they're trying to create a large enough data set of radon exposure so that we can perhaps look at some of these other potential relationships. But right, it's not, the answer isn't no, it's just that we don't know.
Yeah, so it is known connected to lung cancer, but we don't know if there's other risks. Yeah, good.
And that goes for other cancers as well.
All right, next question, Kelly.
Our next one is, does heated flooring in a basement increase the risk in winter?
Mm. Wow, that's a good question.
Yeah, it is a good question. So typically, winter does, we do see an increase in radon levels in the winter. And the reason that is because the gas comes in because of that difference in pressure. And so when our interior of our home is under a low pressure, typically the ground is under a high pressure. And this pressure differential changes as the temperature changes. So as the temperature goes colder, the ground pressure increases, and so that differential increases. So we do then see radon being drawn in more as the temperatures go down. Now, with in-floor heating, that is going to increase the temperature, inside the home, but it's going to do it in such a way that radiates the heat. So it doesn't circulate the heat. So another thing about the forced air type heat is it tends to blow the air around your home. So the gas comes in and then it circulates around, but the in-floor heat just radiates the heat and doesn't move the air the same way. So it's possible that you actually are going to have a layered effect in that type of home. So that might be highest levels in the basement, but not as much in the main floor and going up. Now, it could still be elevated, which is why we recommend that you test, but there might be more of a layer effect in a radiated heat or an in-floor heating situation than there is in a forced air. And I'll just quickly follow that up with another part of that. So if you have an HRV installed in the home, an HRV provides air coming in, so it provides fresh air coming in, but then it removes conditioned air going out. So the fresh air coming in and the air going out should be even. So this would be a balanced system, and it wouldn't change the pressures in the home, but it might bring in some fresh air. So it could have a little bit of reduction of the radon level, just depending on how much air is coming in. But there's a filter on this, so it tends to filter the air, fresh air that's coming in from the outside, and that filter does get clogged. And so if you don't clean that filter or maintain it, then it could decrease the amount of air that's coming in, but the same amount of air is being taken out. And so we do recommend that if you do have an HRV, that you may want to have a digital monitor, so that's monitoring the radon levels, because if it does depressurize the house, it could increase your radon level. And then we also recommend that you keep your HRV maintained. So make sure you're cleaning that filter regularly and get it balanced every once in a while.
Awesome. And we have one more question left.
All right.
Okay. So this is going to be along the lines of for the absolute minimum, say if you are in the midst of moving, can you test for any less than 21 days with this machine? Or, well, the sensor.
Yeah, with these detectors, it's not recommended. So they possibly might give, like they probably will give you a radon level if it's less than 30 days, but typically we recommend these devices be at least used for 30 days. So you may want to wait and use it in your new home. The other option could be, I know that, and I was going to talk about the Blackfalds Library has the radon monitors, I think that you can borrow, right, Kelly?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so they have monitors like this that you can borrow. And so these monitors should still be used for long term, but they can kind of give you an idea less than that. So we recommend you use these for minimum 7 days. So if you get them, you need to reset them. So either reset, or if the batteries have been taken out, then put the batteries in. And then it'll take 24 hours before any numbers show up. So I've got one here. So this one shows just some dashed lines flashing. So this is what it will look like for the first 24 hours. And then after that, it'll start to give you some numbers. So this might be a monitor that you could use, test for the first couple of weeks while you're in your current home, and then you have it for your next home. So then you could, purchase this, or you could borrow it from the library. But
Yeah.
it's great. These devices are a nice option just to give you sort of a screening, an idea of what the radon levels are.
Yeah. But for those potential 30 days with this one, they would still be able to participate in the challenge, correct?
We recommend using them for the 91. So yeah, I wouldn't use it less than the 30. So if you're moving, you can maybe think about using it in your new house.
Okay, I think that is all the questions unless anyone else has any new ones or follow-up. Okay, we are good in person.
All right, sounds good. How about online? I'll give you a minute, and just in case there's any other questions. We also, just to kind of along the line of moving homes, if you are going away for a period of time during the 3 months, then I would recommend that you consider kind of how long you're going. So if you think about 91 days of testing, if you're going away for a couple weeks, it'll be okay. But if you're going away for anything longer than that, then you may want to either return the detector before you go away or postpone testing until after you get back. Because it can impact. So when your house is closed up, when you're not using it, it can impact the radon levels. And so if you think about, the number of days against the total testing, you can sort of figure out the percentage that it's going to impact. So you may want to delay it and test when you're in the home that you're occupied. And so if you aren't around during the collection week, which is in March, then you can mail the detectors back to us. So these actually mail really easily. The address is on the instructions, so you can just send them back to us in the mail if you either aren't around during the collection week or you forget. You can still use the detector and mail it back to us. And then, yeah, questions about, will we share this presentation? Yeah, we will. We've recorded it, so we will post it online, and then we also will share a copy of the presentation if you want to check that out as well. Good. All right. Any last questions, either online or in person, Kelly?
I think we are all good in person. Thank you guys so much for coming and presenting virtually with us and for having us part of your challenge.
Yeah, thank you. We really appreciate you, Kelly, and all of the community. Thank you for participating in this. And make sure you tell your community there are more kits available, so they can pop in and pick them up on a first come, first serve basis. And we are passionate about reducing radon exposed lung cancer. So share the word, because it's all about prevention. So thank you for taking action on this, and for listening to us tonight. And Anne-Marie, thank you for helping me with the presentation. Always great to have a team. And good night to all of you.
Yes, the presentation will be available for people.
Yeah, we will record and share it out.